Unfortunately, too many people feel like they're a failure, that they don't have enough to retire. Folks, welcome to our unique financial channel. There's nothing else like it on YouTube. On this channel, we set up spreadsheets and run numbers for people. This is the question we're looking at. I'm 62, but I'm way short of $1 million. How can I even think of retiring? Well, folks, let's go ahead and run some numbers to show you that it might not be as desperate as you might think. Let's say, for example, this individual has $620,000 saved up, well short of $1 million, and they figure they need $5,000 a month to live on, which would be $60,000 a year. Now, what we want to do is run the numbers. What we do on this channel is run the numbers for every single year for the last 100 years, projecting ahead what similar returns might do for you in the future. You can do a 60-40 asset allocation, 60% staying in the S&P 500, 40% going over some liquid account that you can take out of when your market's going down, so you're not selling low when the market's going down to fund your retirement. We're going to do a 3% COLA. What we're going to do is run the numbers to see what would happen if you did it, had the numbers going forward, what we've had the last 100 years. One other thing we want to do is take into account Social Security. I think people really need to do that. In this case, we got somebody, according to their statement, they're going to get $23.50 at age 67, which you can see it right here. You get 100% of that at age 67, but they want to go see they're 62. What would happen if they retired right now? They would be getting 1645. So we got to take that into account. There's a 1645. I'm going to take that from year one. So now instead of needing 5,000 a month, they only need 5,000 minus the 1645. So they're going to need 3,355 from their nest egg. We're having that grow at 3%. Inflation each year. Let's see where you might be given 100 years worth of data. How many times would you be successful and how many times would you run out of money if we had the same numbers we've had for the last 100 years? Right here, you can see right here, 35% of the time you'd actually run out of money. Let's look at the actual graph here to show you what years. During the Depression years, 1937, around the late 60s, early 70s, again, what's going on? That's when you have these consecutive down years. That's when you'd have problems if we had returns like that going forward. So let's do a couple other things here, folks. Something I think people don't really take into account is the fact that once you retire, they call them the go-go years. The first decade of retirement, you tend to spend a little bit more money because you're out there doing all the travel and all the things you wanted to do your whole working career. You want to get out there and do that. The second decade, they call those the slow-go years, where you kind of slow down. Maybe you're in your 70s, you don't do quite as much traveling. And then your 80s, the last decade, the third decade, they call those the no-go years. So what we're going to do is change these amounts to how much you take out. Instead of giving yourself a 10% COLA, we're going to knock that down by 10% each year. But if you look at the statistics, that's pretty much the way people spend their money in retirement. They start cutting back to the second and third decades. Let's go ahead and update this. This right here is the percentage of the time you'd run out of money in 20 years. We saw that. This is a 20-year graph right here. Let's see how much that changes when we update this for every single year, changing these numbers right here. Okay, that's 22% failure rate. Here's the graph. Pretty much got the same kind of situation. The Depression years, along in the late 60s and around the year 2000. So it did go from a 35% failure rate down to a 22%, but still most people would not be comfortable with a 77% success rate and a 22% failure rate after 20 years. And the 30 years, even worse, you got a 40%, almost 40% failure rate. So what else could we do differently? Let's look at taking Social Security. Right now, we've got taking it at age 62. What if you waited till age 65? Why do we say that? Because at age 65, you're going to get more in Social Security. So let's see this 2350 that says right now, in 3 years from now, that's going to go up because you get a COLA every year. So at age 67, you give it 2531, but we're taking it at age 65 now, so you're going to get 2193. So let's see if that makes any difference. Waiting to take Social Security, 2193. And that would be in the fourth year, age 62, 63, and 64. You would not be getting this higher amount. So you'd need 5,000 from your nest egg the first 3 years, increasing that by 3%. Then this Social Security would kick in at age 65. Let's see if this makes it worse or makes it better. Right now, we've got a 22% failure rate if you go out at age 62. If you go out at age 65, you get a higher amount from Social Security. How does that affect percentage of time? Now it's even worse. So what could we do differently? Let's go down to 4,800. Just change that a little bit. We're just changing a few numbers there, doing $200 less. But one other thing we want to do is whenever there's a negative year, we don't want to give yourself a COLA the next year. Obviously, you don't know during the year whether it's going to be up or down. But the very next year, if the market went down the previous year, you take, instead of giving yourself a 3% COLA, you give yourself 3% less that next year. So you're cutting back a little bit. Let's see how that might change these numbers. We're just kind of showing you what you can do differently. If you have this 620,000, you really want to retire now because you're just plain sick of your job. 27% failure rate. Folks, look at that, folks, down to a 2% failure rate. You're basically being very successful. Here's the new graph. Only during the Depression year, 1929 and maybe the year 2000, you have a success rate just going from 5,000 down to 4,800 and taking a negative COLA after down years. That's all it took to go from a 22% failure rate to a 2% failure rate. That's all you needed to do. So see the 620,000, if you take into account when you take Social Security, if you take negative COLAs after down years, look at that, folks. You're basically successful because what's happening is you're going from a high withdrawal rate of 9%, which is well above the 4% rule, down after those 3 years, down to a withdrawal rate of only 4.45%. You're getting much closer to the 4% withdrawal rule. But that's what we do, folks, on this channel, is maybe give you some encouragement that you don't have to keep working. If you have this kind of money saved up, you don't need $1 million. Even if you need to take it from your nest egg those first 3 years, you're going to get more from Social Security, and it can really help. And especially if you take into account, you're not going to need near as much the second and third decades of your retirement, because generally speaking, people do not spend as much in the second and third decades. But we can change any of these numbers. Folks, that's what we do on this channel. We run all kinds of different numbers. We set up all kinds of spreadsheets. You really need to check out some of these other videos because we cover each one of these concepts in more detail. We run numbers for you and just show you what you might have. Please consider subscribing. Please share this channel with others. Let people know there's a channel out there that run numbers. All kinds of different spreadsheets we set up. I've got dozens of spreadsheets that we can run to show you different numbers, to show you how important these concepts are. That no, you don't need $1 million to retire. Age 62, it's very possible you can think of retiring right now and just let Social Security kick in, maybe a little bit later, but go ahead and let the numbers run out and see where you might be. But again, thanks for watching, and please tell people about this channel.